Trump wrote a book called The Art of the Deal. And that's what Trump is. He's a deal maker. And he is now trying to pull off some impossible feat.
They need to position Israel as the Goliath and the poor Palestinians, this fictitious nation, as David. The truth is that Israel is David, surrounded by 23 Arab states, 57 Muslim states of the global jihad. Look at what they've done to the daughters of Israel. You rip the daughters of Israel, you are going to face the wrath of the God of Israel, and the army of Israel is the sword in his hand.
Welcome back to the Israel Guys and the Land of Israel Network, where in a world of anti-Israel propaganda and Jew hatred, you should be directly connected to the land and people of Israel. Happy to have everybody with us today. Happy to be here with Joshua Waller, Ari Abramowitz, Jeremy Gimpel. It's been a couple of weeks. Very good to be back. Guys, make sure to subscribe, make sure to follow. Let us know in the comments. If you're a new subscriber, I'd love to hear from you. So much news this week out of the Middle East. Hard to keep up with it all. I think obviously we have to start with Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Syria. Trump releasing, seems like by the hour, historic groundbreaking deals. $1.2 trillion economic deal between Qatar and the United States. A $600 billion deal. Now MBS saying possibly up to $1 trillion with Saudi Arabia. Question, I think we need to dive in right here. Let's start with Qatar. Good for Israel, bad for Israel, good for the world, bad for the world. Jeremy, what do you think?
Well, I think that it's remarkable that the one American hostage, Idan Alexander, was immediately released because Qatar told him to be released. And he was the last alive American hostage. And Qatar is not just the funder of Hamas, but they're the leaders of Hamas. And so the Hamas is giving now Donald Trump a fancy plane, signing economic deals with him. It's literally shaking hands with the devil. And is that what the art of the deal is about? Is it just about making deals and closing deals and, making economic growth? And if that's the case, then it is bad for Israel.
And Trump knows this too. He's a smart guy. He said, don't play this game with me that, the Houthis and the this. I see that they're all puppets in the hands of Iran. He knows not that Qatar is puppets in the hand of Hamas, but that Hamas is a puppet in Qatar's hand. And he's going and accepting gifts from them, right? The Bible tells us, the Torah tells us that bribes blind the eyes, and he's bringing this in blood money, hundreds of millions of dollars, blood money. He's accepting an airplane from them. There's no blessing that will ever come to America, to anyone that steps foot in that plane. The Bible, the Torah tells us, do not bring an abomination into your house. That is an abomination. The blood money of Jews, mothers, babies slaughtered, raped, burned, and he's accepting that. There is what to be concerned about. We know that the hearts of leaders are guided like streams in the right. That God is guiding his heart in these decisions. This is all happening, but we have to really be in touch with the reality of what's happening.
Well, when I saw that Saudi Arabia put out that $600 billion deal to put into the American economy over 4 years, I said, oh my goodness, that's Trump's Achilles heel. That's Trump's weak point. Everybody surrounding Trump, for the most part, is very pro-Israel, understands that Israel, but it really doesn't matter at this point, because what I see and what I'm really, I'm not scared about, because there's somebody bigger than Trump that we all believe is actually in control of this whole thing. But Trump, as it concerns America, I think America is going to see some tough days ahead in regard to this, because nothing has changed in history. Those that bless Israel will be blessed. Those who curse, as you just outlined, Ari, that's going to be the same. So if dollar bills is Trump's Achilles heel, and dollar bills is what's taking Trump's visit to the Middle East, he's not even going to come to Israel.
He just flew right over Israel.
Yeah, I want to get to Saudi Arabia in a minute, but I think it's worth separating Qatar and Saudi Arabia in two separate conversations. I think what you said, Jeremy, was really important. That's something I hadn't brought out or thought about before, is the fact that literally Trump goes to Qatar and Hamas releases the last remaining American hostage. It's very, very possible Qatar controls everything and going on in Gaza with Hamas.
Well, the Hamas
Probably not
leadership, they were located in Qatar. And you think about the hostage, the details are coming out now. He was bound with his hands and knees, put in a cage, stuck in a tunnel. He barely got any food. And the same Qatar that released him is the Qatar that put him there to begin with. And you're dealing with pure evil. And so,
and to have him to bring that boy, that young soldier, and bring him to stand and give thanks to the kings of Qatar who did this to him. I mean, that's a biblical level of sinister darkness that was even thrown out there. That was an expectation. I'm sorry, Jeremy, go ahead.
No, I can't believe what's going on. That's the truth.
I think also important to mention that Trump did not come to Israel on this trip. Yeah, like you were saying, flew over Israel, went to Qatar, who is, you could say, responsible for what Hamas is doing to Israel in Gaza.
Well, Trump wrote a book called The Art of the Deal. And that's what Trump is. He's a deal maker. And he is now just wheeling and dealing and trying to pull off some impossible feat, because you're dealing with Qatar and you're dealing with the head of Syria, who was a fighter in al-Qaeda, a backer of ISIS. These people are ideological. They're not ready to just cut deals and make deals. And I feel like Trump is kind of walking down a path that has no exit.
He's making the vintage Western error of projection, of saying everybody bottom line is, okay, ideology, schmeideology, let's put that aside. Money, let's talk money. Let's talk deals. And he doesn't understand that he's dealing with a people that not by bread alone does man survive, that are ideological above and beyond everything else. And he doesn't see what he's actually dealing with.
I was just reading Al Jazeera to see what the Arabs are thinking about.
Well, can we just mention real quick who owns Al Jazeera and controls Al Jazeera?
Well, yeah. No, and then that's how you're going to see what actually is happening right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, obviously Al Jazeera is owned by Qatar. Israel kicked Al Jazeera out. Their journalists were embedded with Hamas on October 7th, and some of them were responsible for what happened to Israel on October 7th. Well,
here's what I want to say is that there's a really big problem right now. Trump saw it as a big win that he got the last living American out, right? What also did he see as a big win? He saw that the Houthis no longer attacking American interest was a win. Those are two major red flags to me that says Trump's American interest is not tied to Israel anymore. That's just really clear. That what happens now when a Houthi shoots a rocket, a ballistic missile 5 stories tall at the Ben Gurion airport, Trump's not at war with that. That doesn't matter to Trump that there's rockets, ballistic missiles being shot at Israel.
They've successfully shut down all other airlines other than El Al and the other Israeli shot. I mean, they're destroying Israel's economy.
And that's war.
That is war.
That's war. And there's still Israeli hostages. So to separate American interest from this war is a big mistake, I think.
It's a big mistake for 2 reasons. Number one is because it's missing the entire picture.
Yeah.
The deepest transcendent truth beyond everything else, which is that Pakistan and India isn't about the Pakistanis wanting to liberate this or that this is all about the jihad, the global jihad, to bring the entire world under the Muslim caliphate. And by missing that point and thinking that you can align with the interests of the caliphate, of the jihad, you're essentially making your own bed. They're going to come for you. So
and by jumping on board with this Jolani of Syria, he's one of the greatest fighters of the Arab time. I mean, he fought against America. He had a $10 million bounty on his head. And now we're making a deal with the greatest jihadi of literally one of the greatest jihadis of the now moment.
Great news, guys. Israel Summit live stream tickets are available June 9th through 11th. Even if you cannot make it in person, for just a few dollars, you can get live access to all of the inspiring speakers, including Ambassador David Friedman, Michelle Bachmann, Eric Stackelbeck, Yishai Fleischer, Jeremy and Ari, obviously a concert by the Israeli hit duo Yonina, and much, much more. No matter where you are in the world, if you can't make it to Texas, you can be equipped and inspired to fight and stand on behalf of Israel and Israel's biblical heartland. Just visit the link in the description below for all of the details. Remember, it's just $35 to get access for you and your entire family to a life-changing 3-day event from the comfort of your own home. Act fast. You don't want to wait. The summit is coming up very soon. You can get live stream access right now. Click the link in the description below to learn more.
Do you think that there's anything happening behind the scenes, that this is somehow some three-dimensional chess game that Trump is playing? Or it's really just, hey, they got me a plane. All right, I like planes. I like money. I like deals.
$1 trillion. I literally think $1 trillion speaks Trump's language.
It's hard to, I think we could wish and hope for that. But with Trump, it's really hard to envision that being reality. So this deal, just to put a couple of details on it, $1.2 trillion economic deal with the U.S. We're talking 210 Boeing aircraft between Qatar Airways and Boeing. Dreamliners, we're talking $200 billion of airplanes from Boeing. It's expected to support 150,000 U.S. jobs annually. Boeing's the largest ever wide body and 787 order. Raytheon, $1 billion deal to sell Qatar drone defense capabilities. General Atomics, a $2 billion deal to sell unmanned aerial vehicles. Another letter of intent for $38 billion of investment. The list goes on and on and on. Qatar, again, publicly stating support for Hamas, publicly blaming Israel for the war with Hamas, saying it's all their fault for continuing to bomb Gaza and the hostage negotiations not going anywhere. Like you mentioned, they've been the home of Hamas for years. Literally, the question is there any difference between Qatar and Hamas? Is that the same organization?
There is no difference. But, we very often, as spiritual, religious, Bible-believing Jews and Christians, we look at the prophecies and we say, look, this is going to happen and this may happen, but this is already happening, right? It's already happening. In the end of days, Yishmael, meaning the jihadist world, and Edom, the West, America, will come together against Jerusalem. Mm-hmm. That is what we just saw happen. By Trump allying himself and strengthening Qatar, he's strengthening Ishmael, he's strengthening the global jihad. This is happening in Israel right now. We're all feeling it in the country. Like, are we really alone here now? We're celebrating Trump. Finally, we have a friend in the White House, someone we could rely on, someone that we could put our hopes in. And then that idol is being shattered right before our eyes.
Why do you think it's being shattered right now?
I think it's being shattered because we have proven in the eyes of God that we cannot handle having an ally. We had Trump actually come and say, do it, Bibi, do it. Go into Gaza, take it back, wipe out the jihad, and Bibi just doesn't have it in him. I don't think he's bad. I pray for him. I think he has the best interests of Israel at heart, but he is King Saul. King Saul couldn't finish off Amalek, couldn't finish off Agag. He doesn't have it in him to make such bold, powerful moves like that. He's a pragmatist. He's a strategist. He's a status quo guy. He doesn't have that fire of righteous indignation saying, look at what they've done to the daughters of Israel. You rape the daughters of Israel, you are going to face the wrath of the God of Israel, and the army of Israel is the sword in his hand. He doesn't have that in him. And so he's proven to be weak. And so now Bibi is going, Trump is going, and we're left alone, and that's good. That's my comfort zone. I'm happy that this is happening.
It seems like Trump wanted to cut a deal with Netanyahu first. He gave us the green light. Yeah. He's like, get rid of the jihad. You guys will be the global leaders. You have my back. We'll make a Riviera. He put out that cool AI video where Trump and him are like on the beach, and there's like, this is the new vision for Gaza. And Bibi is the king of the quo. He's the king of the status quo. He's like, whatever is, let's not shake things up too much. And then when Trump, who's really the master of the art of the deal, said, I can't really do a deal here. I'm not able to do what needs to be done. Israel was given the green light to become the nation we were chosen to be the leaders of the region. He was saying, you push back jihad, you can establish something new. The Abraham Accords, it will all be on the axis of who's going to make peace with Israel. And Israel chose to sort of kick the can down the road and keep it the same.
But I also don't think that it was meant to be. You know, Yishai Fleischer, one of the greatest spokesmen of Israel, made an incredible video about this rift that's happening. But it wasn't meant to be that Israel makes these bold, powerful moves with the thumbs up of America, with the blessing and the license and the protection of America, because that's not really Israel doing it. It needs to be done from a place of trust and faith and righteous indignation and spiritual clarity when we're all alone in the world. And so this is supposed to be happening right now. This is the way things are supposed to play out to give us the opportunity to shift over biblically from the house of Saul to the house of David. We're on that seam in world history, in the history of the unfolding redemption right now. And for those that don't know it, this is not abstract spiritual, but look in your Bible.
Yeah.
Look in your Bible at what happened between Saul and David and what that shift happened and what that meant. Because the nation of Israel is ready. We're ready for the house of David. You look at the soldiers, you listen to the people, you look at the nation, we're ready for it. And it's going to come soon.
You know, there are two Israels. There's an Israel that the world loves, and there's an Israel that the world hates. And Israel number one is our hostages, we're the victims. October 7th, a Holocaust Memorial Museum, an October 7th museum. We're so sad. We're very moral. Let's feed our enemies. That is an Israel that as we continue to be that, anti-Semitism and Jew hatred and Israel hatred grows. And then there's Israel that has beeper operations, that in one night takes down all of Hezbollah in the most unbelievable James Bond. No movie could ever even come up with what Israel came up with. And that's power and strength and courage. And that's a world that loves Israel, that admires Israel. And Israel has a choice now. And eventually we're going to be pushed into a corner where we will stand alone. That is our destiny. Am levadad yishkon, a nation that dwells alone. And it's going to be all nations that come together. And there's going to be one Israel that stands alone. And then our true courage, strength, and faith will come out.
Yeah.
I was with a good friend yesterday who's an attorney, and he told me, and this is along Ari's point of the two Israels that are at fighting against each other now with the King David, King Saul. He said he had a young man bring a lamb onto the Temple Mount. Just obviously Jewish connection to the Temple Mount has to do a lot with lambs. And if anybody knows their Bibles, this is the worship to God.
Well,
he brought a lamb up there.
It was for Passover,
Yeah, it was
Pesach
for
Sheni, right?
the
Like
second Passover on the day. And he went up to the Temple Mount, and he got it through the back gate kind of entrance, and he was attacked by Muslims on top of the Temple Mount. And this is like the war going on in Israel. The righteous that have a biblical context, the view of the Temple Mount will be a place to worship God, that all nations should come and worship. But there's a big confrontation happening because that can't happen as long as jihad is in control on top of this Temple Mount. And most Israelis, I can't say most anymore, the higher echelons of Israelis are holding back. And this friend of mine was literally in the court case with a Christian Arab judge fighting him, saying, no, the Jews should not have any rights on this Temple Mount. He won the case. My friend won the case, and the guys we got the guys out of prison. But I feel like that's the clash going on in Israel. There is a new thing happening.
It's interesting that, we're not called the children of Abraham. We're not called the children of Isaac. We're called the children of Israel. We're Israelites. But Israel is the only one of the patriarchs that has two names. He has Jacob and he has Israel. And that is playing out right now within Israel. Who are we? Are we Israel or are we Jacob? Are we ones that will hide and run away from Esav, or will we stand up and fight and be Israel? And we see that the internal dynamics within one people, we have two names, we have two identities, and those two identities are really at war with each other.
My big question right now is as it relates to America, we're talking about a bigger kind of view of Israel right now, but as it relates to America, is America shifting? Our view before is that Israel should be the leader of this region. We've made sure as American interests that Israel was the most highly advanced military power here in the Middle East. They had the best resources, and we helped to provide that as America, and we backed them up, kind of. But we made sure that balance was maintained. What's happening now, and what I'm foreseeing and what kind of scares me, is that it feels like due to the dollar bills, Trump may be shifting that reliance on Israel as the power of the Middle East, maybe to moving that to Saudi Arabia. That's my question. And for sure moving it away from Iran, because that's not in American interest, and moving it to Saudi Arabia, as Saudi Arabia could be the big honcho of the Middle East, or Qatar, whoever's got the most money. Makes sense to Trump.
Let me follow up with that.
But he's not naming it the Gulf of Qatar. He wants it to be the Gulf of
Arabia.
Gulf of Arabia. I think there's something connection. I think Trump's setting them up.
So just on the topic of Saudi Arabia, and I'm curious, I think this question for the prophecy you were talking about, Ari, about Ishmael and Edom joining forces and coming against Israel. Obviously, we all know the prophecies that talk about all nations coming against Israel. Up until now, there's been a lot of positive perception on Saudi Arabia normalizing relations with Israel. That's kind of like the big elephant that's been in the room for a couple of years. Will Saudi Arabia normalize relations with Israel? All right, now Trump started his Mideast tour with Saudi Arabia. They announced a $600 billion deal with the U.S. The Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, said then he upped that pledge to $1 trillion. I don't know, maybe they saw the $1.2 trillion from Qatar and didn't want to be outdone. Trump said he tried to encourage normalization with Israel and then acknowledged that MBS is not ready for it right now. So big question is there a scenario where, it's very obvious this is a bad deal with Qatar, right? Qatar is not the friend of the West, not the friend of Israel. Is Saudi Arabia, is this the same scenario? Is there a scenario where this could be actually a positive thing for Israel, positive thing for the world?
Yeah, it's not, in my mind, it's not the same thing. Saudi Arabia is not the same thing as Qatar, right? To me, Qatar are Amalekite Philistines, and Saudi Arabia is Yishmael, where in the end, we believe that Isaac and Ishmael were able to reconcile. There's something there. But the fact that America is saying and signaling very clearly to Saudi Arabia that we can do this thing, and Israel's not critical for you to do anything with them. They're not part of the deal. They're not part of the picture, not part of the Abraham Accords. We can do this alone. That is creating a serious rift. And I can't help but to think, I'm the guy that brings this stuff, that there is a prophecy based on Isaiah from thousands of years ago that just before I say it, understand the absurdity of this prophecy being even articulated with the level of high resolution detail that it has about what's going on right now. Okay, I've read this, I think it was the first show we did, but it's from Yalkut Shimoni. It says, Rabbi Yitzchak said, the year the Melech HaMashiach, the King Messiah, will be revealed, all the kings of the nations of the world will provoke each other. The king of Persia will provoke the king of Arabia, and the king of Arabia will go to Edom, America, to take counsel from them. And the king of Persia will destroy the entire world, and all the nations will be panicked and confused, and they will fall on their faces and be seized by pains like birth pangs. And Israel will be panicked and confused, and they will say, where shall we go? What shall we do? And God will say to them, my children, do not be afraid. Everything I have done for you. Why are you afraid? The time of your redemption has come. And I can't help but to think he's standing there in front of Mohammed bin Salman, and he's showering him with compliments and compliments and compliments. Forget the fact that America and the West really had a lot to do with the development of Saudi Arabia's ability to even harvest their oil and become the rich people there. Forget that. He's showering with compliments, and then he says, and Iran better get their act together because they have limited time. And so here he is threatening Iran, showering praise on Saudi Arabia, exactly what is happening and described right here. So,
well, I think that point has been missed, meaning Iran's biggest rival in the Middle East is Saudi Arabia. And the fact that America is now tying its fate very closely with Saudi Arabia has to do with maybe the next few months of what will be with Iran.
Yeah, it's a miscalculation big time, I think, by so many players here that if Iran got a nuke, it would immediately nuke Israel. There's an argument to make that they would nuke Saudi Arabia.
Or they would nuke America.
That's true also.
Or both, or all three. But just to dig a little deeper on that, I'm just really curious because a lot of people, we talk about the prophecies, like biblically speaking, obviously we don't know, God's plans, but like what's your thoughts? Like what's the projection on how this will play out with Qatar, with Saudi Arabia, with Israel, with the United States? Like, does anybody have thoughts on this?
Well, Ari just told us they're gonna all fight it out, and then Iran's gonna nuke everybody, and this all over. Isn't that what you just said?
I mean,
is that what you just told everybody?
I mean, every single war game shows
great, guys.
Sorry, that's in the game.
First of all, if you look throughout the Bible, show me one of the books that doesn't say somehow that in the end of days, when these terrifying wars are going to be playing out, that the remnant will be in Zion, that there will be a bastion of security and safety in Israel, Israel, which is ironic because so many people look at Israel as the most dangerous place in the world. But in reality, I hold my breath and feel like I'm scuba diving in shark-infested waters when I'm going to this Israel Guys conference in Dallas. Okay, so you could call me crazy, but the prophet Zechariah says, and all the nations of the earth shall gather against her. That the world will eventually come all together against Israel, and it needs to be that way because we need to be able to look around in the tangible, physical, material world of ours and say, nobody is with us. Either everyone wants to wipe us out or is neutral or standing aside or making deals, and we're all alone here. What are we going to do? We have no one to place our hope in. And that's what this is all about.
Well, I'll tell you, I try to play the game. Let's say if instead of President Trump, it was President Obama. And we had the new president of Syria. His name is Jolani. He was an al-Qaeda fighter. He had millions of dollars on his head as one of the top terrorists of the world. He's now the head of Syria, and the Trump administration has decided to lift the sanctions off of Syria. Had President Barack Obama done that, we would all have a hissy fit. And yet, it's happening right now. Syria is on our border with what should be, what has always been a Jew-hating genocidal leader. And now they're lifting sanctions to allow them to grow their economy, to become stronger. So when you say what's down the road, it seems like Israel will be surrounded by its enemies once again, and we will stand alone.
Something that people don't know on Jolani is that his parents were actually they began their family in the Golan Heights in Israel, and in 1967, Israel pushed all the Arabs that were living in the Golan Heights out, and his family was a part of that. So do you think Jolani just loves Israel?
Right. So he has like a vengeance that's like burning in him.
You better believe he does. There's no doubt about it. He's a part of this, and he even said himself that the whole the fight of the jihad in 2000 here, back in 2000 in Israel, is what gave him, in an interview back in the day, that gave him the strength to go and be a fighter for Islam, to become a jihadi. Do you think that jihadi thing has left him? There's no possible way. Israel, certainly, as you've just outlined, it has to be. It's still his biggest enemy.
So there's no doubt about it. He's
playing
approach,
a political
the way
jihad.
Trump is approaching Syria, Qatar, Saudi Arabia. According to open source intel on Twitter or X, according to the White House, Trump has outlined the following demands for Syrian President Jolani. 1, join the Abraham Accords, normalize ties with Israel. 2, expel all foreign terror groups from Syrian territory. 3, remove Palestinian terrorists from the country. 4, assist the U.S. in blocking any ISIS resurgence. 5, take control of ISIS detention centers in northeastern Syria. Now, what's interesting, though, Trump already removed the sanctions from Syria. So Trump's approach to these, the art of the deal, again, is he takes these steps first, and then afterwards, he's like, now that I've done such amazing things for you, I expect you to reciprocate, right? With Qatar, with Syria. He's already lifted the sanctions on Syria. Now he says, he's expecting them to normalize ties with Israel, to expel foreign terror groups.
Is the West just absolutely oblivious?
A strange way to negotiate with the Middle East?
No, but that's what I'm saying. They're absolutely oblivious to the Middle Eastern way. Jolani can look at President Trump straight in the eyes and lie through his teeth. We're going to do whatever you want us to do. And do you think he's going to do it? There's not any reason in the world why he needs to do it. He told Trump he was going to do that.
Especially now the sanctions have already been removed.
Especially now that he's already done it. And I think that's a complete miss, and that's going to have some really bad effects.
I want to add another piece to the puzzle.
Yeah.
There is a new movement within the United States that the Republican Party, the conservative movement, there is a huge swath of them that are turning against Israel and turning against the Jewish people. Yeah. And I believe that there is a coordinated effort at that. There are strings that are being pulled. And the way that I know that is that really at the heart of real Israel hatred is the Catholic Church. Mm-hmm. The first prayer that the new Pope said was saying how bad he feels for the Gazans, and he wasn't talking about the hostages that are in Gaza, and they're still holding the vessels of our temple in Jerusalem. Like, they are the epitome of replacement theology. They have replaced Israel, and the fact that Israel is back in our homeland is a thorn in their eye. And the fact that most religious Catholics are right-wing Republican voters. There is a movement of now, for the first time ever, having an American Pope in America, it is a move to try to gather more and more right-wing conservatives against Israel.
You think that was a premeditated?
There's no question it was so strategic, and it's all happening right now.
Not to mention that the Pope mobile from the previous Pope is being donated to the people of Gaza, which could be laughable if it wasn't sad, but because obviously we know there's going to be a video on social media sometime in the near future with Hamas terrorists riding around in the Pope mobile.
Right,
And an Israeli soldier booming it and destroying it with the...
Right, and I think it's important to also look at what Trump just did with Saudi Arabia and Qatar through that prism. Because last time he was elected, it was very clear that it was the evangelicals that elected him. He understood that. He had his ear to the ground. He understood what their desires were, that Israel was a big expectation. His ear is still to the ground. And he's seeing the Tucker Carlsons and the Candace Owens and the Joe Rogans. I'm not saying that these are, bad or evil people. For whatever reason, they're coming down, many of them strongly against not only Israel, but very much against Jews. And he has his ear to the ground. He's like, he's hearing people in his own party saying, stop this Israel thing. This is not what we want. This is not why we elected you. We're not. Go ahead with.
Is it fair to say that it's a fringe group in America that stands up like strongly with Israel right now?
At this point, it's
I almost would say that.
Staunch supporters of Israel. It is, I would say, and 20%.
Trump is hearing that. Trump is not hearing it. He's seeing that. He's seeing it on the Twitter X accounts. He's seeing that on all the main media. He's watching and he's seeing they really don't care about Israel anymore. They're caring more about money. That's what the reality is. And so Trump is doing what America wants him to do right now.
Well, what happened for the American Jews is that they hoped that they would be able to find solace and refuge in the Republican Party. Like, oh, finally, we have friends that we can rely on. And like every time that we've ever done that, we find out that we have no one to rely on other than God.
Right. American Jews are realizing, because a long time ago, leftist liberal Jews have gone above and beyond to show that they are Democrats. Before, that's their real religion.
Right. Yeah.
Democratic Party is their real religion to a very large degree. I just know too many where that is their fundamental faith. But now these Jews that are in their Orthodox synagogues that for 30 years have been saying, you hear what Hannity said about Israel? You hear what, all of these, what's his name? The right-wing conservative party was always about Israel. And now that illusion is being shattered. And then Jews are going to have to come to terms with the reality that we're not right-wing conservatives. We're not left-wing liberals. We're not Democrats. We're not Republicans. We're Jews. Our enemies see that very clearly. October 7th really exposed the truth that Hitler exposed also, that they don't see, these are in Gaza and the Gaza envelope, they're left-wing activists, peace activists. We're not going to, they don't care. They don't make discriminations between, we shouldn't either.
As Israel celebrates 77 years of independence, this moment in history is an invitation to every believer to find their place in God's unfolding story, to wake up to the truth that divine action isn't locked in ancient times. It's here, now, moving powerfully and intimately in the world and in our personal lives. And that's why I created a new course, Waking Up, the ancient Judean way to biblical faith. Waking up is a path for every believer to transcend religion and reconnect to the foundations of emunah, the true biblical faith, just as Abraham and the prophets of Israel lived with it. A life alive with the presence of Hashem, a life that walks hand in hand with the living God. Check out this new course and book, Waking Up, at thelandofisrael.com. Well, I feel like a lot of times the enemies of Israel are really here to point out what needs to be pointed out. Meaning right now, I think we're at day 71 of the blockade of humanitarian aid. And of course, Italy is saying it's unprecedented, it's unjustified, and all these countries are coming out. Canada now with their new anti-Israel leadership is coming out against us as well. Had we ended the war on October 9th, and just gotten the job done, the world would have respected us, honored us, and moved on. But because we've dragged this war on for so long, it's right. They're right for coming against Israel and Netanyahu. We should have finished this thing more than a year ago.
Speaking of Gaza, there's a story we got to talk about. the IDF is investigating whether their high-value strike has taken out Mohammed Sinwar, who's the brother of Yahya Sinwar, obviously, and the leader of Hamas, along with Abu Obaida, the spokesman, and
I thought they killed him like 12 times now.
And Mohammed Shabana, who was the leader of the Nukhba unit, which led the October 7th massacre. So IDF dropped, I think, 40 bunker buster bombs, weighing a ton in total on the Khan Yunis area, because they think that the Hamas leadership had embedded themselves in their compound way underneath in an underground command center. So they're still verifying that it seems like the evidence is coming out more and more that these 3 guys may have been taken out. I think that this is a good thing for Israel that they have done this, and also that like right after Idan Alexander was released this week, Trump is announcing deals with Qatar and Saudi Arabia. Israel is still going in stronger and stronger to get the job done in Gaza. Obviously, 500 and something days too late.
Right. Well, Netanyahu said we're going to go in full force. And these pinpoint assassinations is hardly anything but full force. It's like he's unable to make any real change and actually do something unprecedented to unleash hell. That was what Trump
said. Didn't BB say that the IDF was going to start something this week that the world has never seen before? Or something?
Okay, just do it.
What is that?
Just stop talking about it. Stop saying it. Just do it. That's what. Nike was right. And I'm speaking to soldiers that are down there in Gaza. Like it's the same exact thing.
Yeah,
we were here for months and months and months. Our friends died in our arms. Our families suffered, and for what? We're back here doing the same thing with soldiers dying in the same way. Each one of them a jewel and a diamond whose toenail is more valuable than the entire army of Hamas and 70% of their civilians that participated in the torture and rape of our people.
You know what I'm thinking just now is that when Biden was first elected back on the last term, what happened here in Israel, if you guys remember back over 4 years ago now, is we saw an uptick in terror attacks. We saw an uptick because they felt the support of the outside world. It's really hard to say this, but the truth is that simultaneous to Trump shifting his move to becoming less Israel-centered, rejecting Israel's as a negotiation partner with Hamas altogether. They're not even involved.
Iran.
Or with Iran. They're completely cut off. Trump has made a decision to deal with the Middle East the way America wants to, with Israel excluded from the conversation.
From what we understand, Israel was not even notified about Idan Alexander. Like they weren't even a part about
they were not a part of
hostage being released from Gaza.
And what I'm seeing is there's a clear result. And this was what I was going to say earlier about Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera is very clearly excited about this momentum. They're very excited that Trump has shifted his view to an Arab-centered Middle East instead of an Israel-centered run Middle East. And this effect has emboldened not only the Qatar and Saudi Arabia, and even I would venture to say the Iranian, even them, because just removing Israel is going to help all of these Arab entities that are at war, number one, with Israel. We saw last night an absolutely horrific attack. We haven't seen this in a long time. It's literally since Trump's been in office, we haven't seen terror attacks like this happening, because the enemy was they were a little bit frightened. They were like, oh, Israel's aligned with America now. We better get in shape. We better back off. We haven't seen any mass kind of, we've seen here and there little things. Last night, a mother on the way to the hospital to give birth to her child was shot and killed. Just 30 minutes from here. Her husband, who was driving, was also shot. Thank God he's okay. He's in stable condition. But I can't fathom the pain that family is in right now at the loss of their mother. The child was thank God the doctors were able to save her child.
It looks right now.
As it looks. This pain is a result of that move. And it's not if Israelis will continue to die in this same horrible terrorist attacking Israel mode. It's how many. How many will have to die under this new shift? And it started now, and it's not going to stop until, it's just the reality that we're facing now. This decision of Trump is costing Israeli lives.
Well, the real problem is that 80 to 90% of the Arabs in Judea and Samaria supported and celebrated October 7th. Yeah. And to actually go to war in Judea and Samaria alone is going to be far more complicated than going to war in Gaza. Far more complicated. Maybe there won't be as many tunnels because it's more rocky here in Judea and Samaria, but it's over a much larger, more dispersed community. I mean, it will be the war is only starting right now if we're actually going to have to go to war and clear out the jihad in Judea and Samaria. And we're going to do it without America's backing.
You know, the reason that the entire European world, the Western world, is constantly saying the Palestinian-Israeli conflict and talking about that, right? We spoke about it before, is because they need to position Israel as the Goliath and the poor Palestinians, this fictitious nation, as David. What the truth is that Israel is David, surrounded by 23 Arab states, 57 Muslim states of the global jihad. We know that. And what was Goliath doing? He would go day after day after day, taunting Israel, mocking Israel, and know that we just received it and absorbed it and accepted it. And until David came and said, who is this uncircumcised Philistine who dares to mock the armies of the living God of Israel with a righteous indignation? And this attack, which just exposes the deepest truth, that she was on the way to bring life into the world, and they bring death into the world. And they're a death cult of babies sending their children into the fire of Molech. That's the pagan death worship that we're dealing with. And that's why it says Yishmael is called Yishmael. It says, why is he called Yishmael? Because in the future, the Holy One, blessed be he, will hear the cry of the people of Israel. Yishmael means to hear the voice of God. Will hear the cry of the people of Israel from what the children of Yishmael will do to them in the end of days. That's what we're dealing with right now. And how long will it take until we have a David that comes and says, enough? This attack should be that. We should be able to come with righteous indignation and say, it doesn't need to be what Jeremy just spelled out. The war is only beginning, and the Judea and Samaria. No, we can just end this.
The Yesha Council's response to last night's terrorist attack. They said, the only way to prevent such serious attacks is to turn the city centers and villages from which the murderers emerge into ruins. We've been warning about this for a long time. If the army continues to invest enormous efforts to capture a lone terrorist or a weapons cache and does not change the security perception on the ground, the state of Israel and its citizens will continue to be in danger. And I think the idea is correct, right? That there's two sides to this. One, like Josh, you were talking about, this terrorist attack is a direct result of the Trump administration's decisions, which I agree with you. And to be clear, we're not saying America should support Israel just because, right? Just because they need to support Israel. There's two reasons for America to support Israel. One, because America was founded as a nation under God. And if you're a nation under God, you should believe in the Bible and you should believe in God's promises, which means the blessing comes from being aligned with the nation and the people of Israel. And two, a very practical security standpoint is that America should align with Israel because Israel is defending America from their enemies. But one other thing I wanted to talk about too is we've also been discussing Israel is not yet ready to end this war, right? I don't know if you saw driving up this morning, but there's a massive 30-foot tall fence going up along Highway 60 with barbed wire, between them. And the reason it's going up is because they throw rocks. The Arabs throw rocks onto the highway, onto Jewish cars there.
I just had this mental picture.
Instead of rooting out the terror, though, they're building a 30-foot tall fence with barbed wire.
Just had this mental picture of, because you know who walked down that road? Abraham walked down that road, Isaac and Jacob and every biblical character, Joshua, Samuel, the priest in Shiloh, they all walked down that road. Every one of them. This is the biblical highway that goes all the way back to camels and biblical people going up back and forth to Jerusalem. Can you imagine all these biblical characters understanding where we are today, that Jews are not safe in their own homeland. Jews have to, on their one highway, this is like the Route 66 of Israel. This is like the highway of Israel.
Route 60, yeah.
It's the Route 60 of Israel. And you have to put barbed wire and 30-foot fences in order to allow Jews to make that trek today.
Well, the point is you don't have to
That's
put it.
insane.
But that's Israel's solution at the moment, is to put barbed wire.
is no
between
solution
them
at all.
and
It's
enemies.
because it's one thing to take the Jew out of the exile, and it's another thing to take the exile out of the Jew. There's a reason we had to go 40 years through the desert and not 3 weeks directly to the Holy Land. We could have. It was a 3-week journey. Why do we have to do 40 years? Because we're people, and the journey of extricating the exile, the ghetto thinking from ourselves on a national level is taking time. But you just heard from the Yesha Council. They said it. They said the whole village should be brought down to ruins. Why? Because as Jews, we understand that this Western concept that collective punishment is so horrible. It's not really so horrible. It makes perfect sense. And by the way, the West implements this collective punishment in all of their wars, but for some reason, there's an exactitude held to us. But think about it, from God does it himself, from the flood, right? There was evil in the world, wiped out the world. There's a flood, Sodom and Gomorrah. Collective punishment. Egypt, the sea, what? Collective punishment. Achan's sin, right? He sinned in his whole family. This is something that we have seen and experienced throughout the Bible, and it's not like these thorns, these bloody, painful thorns are growing in these rose gardens of love. Okay, these terrorists that come out of these villages are an expression of the village themselves, and that's why the Council of Judea and Samaria said that. The whole village. That's the only way. Otherwise, we're going to be playing this game at the expense of our own children's lives.
Did you see the videos that came out of Saudi Arabia? The videos of Trump's visit there?
A few, yeah, of them, yeah.
They were really exciting. They really were. There was like lights and shows. There was a McDonald's truck that was following Trump around. They really made it look really awesome. And the enemies of Israel have done an amazing job, because Israel is the hope of the world. Israel is meant to be the most exciting thing on the block. We are meant to be the bringers of redemption. We are going to save the world. And right now, the enemy has forced us to be dealing with hostages and wars and barbed wire and fences, while Saudi Arabia has lights and shows and songs and dances and camels and this whole parade where Elon Musk and Sam Altman, the founder of ChatGPT, and Larry Fink, the largest asset management in the world, they're all in Saudi Arabia, where it's like the shift has moved there, where the enemy has really done its job. But what's happening beneath the scenes is that Israel will ultimately stand alone, and redemption will come from Zion. But that's as we are watching this all being set up, it's become a fringe movement now to stand with Israel, because the only people that will really stand with Israel till the very end are the people that really hold the Bible dear. Mm-hmm. The people that really love the Torah, really love the Word of God, really believe in prophecy, believe in Israel's return to the land of Israel. And so if you really believe in that, then you're going to be like that line in the sand that's being drawn. You'll stand with Israel to the very end. And that's exactly what's being positioned now, to really sift out the real believers.
There's two things. One is that you said the enemy forced us. The enemy can't force us to do anything. Part of the redemptive mindset is understanding that we have actual agency here. We're not forced by them. We decide how we're going to respond. We decide our perception and our approach to things. That's number one. And the truth is, it's not only people that I agree that towards the end, fewer and fewer and fewer people will be of that righteous remnant that stands with Israel. But it's not only people that believe in God and believe in the Bible, but it's also just people with moral clarity. You know, Douglas Murray, I don't think he's a particularly biblical or religious man, but he sees moral clarity, and he's willing to stand with that moral clarity. Even if the whole world is against it, he sees that moral clarity. So it's not a necessity to be biblical. What's a necessity is to be true, because the rest of the world, the Tucker Carlsons are like, I'm an America firster, all of that stuff aside. There's all of these jihadist countries with conviction and passion. Why are we standing against them with Israel? Let's just join the big bully on the block, and then we're safe. We don't need to suffer because of Israel. It's a very pragmatic, practical approach. And if you are a person of truth and conviction, with or without the Bible, then you say, no, there's truth and there's righteousness, and I'm going to stand right there.
Well, it's hard to argue with trillions of dollars.
So I was going to say, materialism speaks the language of America. That's who America is. I would say back in the day, maybe America was based on some sort of religious belief and deeper heart connection to God. Our culture was more God-centered. And so maybe this is really the shift that's actually happening. And it's literally in the hearts of Americans, is that the shift has moved pretty much solely to materialism. And can Israel provide that materialism? Or I think Saudi Arabia could provide materialism better. And maybe that's the deeper thing that we're talking about here. Israel doesn't really provide that. Israel provides the faith of Abraham, that deep connection that actually can sustain the world, because the materialism of Saudi Arabia is not going to be there for long. I mean, that's a thing that will just go and come, and who knows what next country is going to be the next wealthiest place, and that's not sustainable. But what we've seen is Abraham was sustained. That has sustained the globe.
What's
faith.
so remarkable, and I'm just waiting for this next move to happen, is that the people of Saudi Arabia are religious people, and they really honor the Bible. They love Abraham. They realize who the Jewish people are. And as soon as we start speaking in the name of God, acting in the name of God, living up to the people that we were chosen to be, I think that respect would come. The Abraham Accords would happen without any deals need to be struck. They would just be like, this is the people of God. They're back in the Holy Land. And it's really up to us to bring the light.
So Saudi Arabia doesn't concern you, it's Qatar.
Well, Qatar is the enemy. And I can't see how making a deal with the enemy, with Al Jazeera, with the Hamas, how any good can come of that. It's like you're being bribed by the enemy.
Yeah,
How aligned, real quick, is Qatar and Saudi Arabia?
That's a good question. I think it's very much in flux right now. It has to do with the alignment of interest, short-term and long-term interests. And so there is definitely a tension there. But right now, they're both needing to play the West game. So they're both playing opposite Trump. They're trying to play him and to get him to. And I had this dog, Scoop. He loved hamburgers. If I had a hot hamburger, I could literally hold it over the side of a cliff, and Scoop would jump and grab that hamburger and fall off the cliff. And I feel like, Qatar was just like, Trump would offer him a $400 million plane. He doesn't have the capacity,
not to
the free will to say he will bite that hamburger and jump over the cliff. They understood who they're dealing with. And both Saudi Arabia and Qatar are courting Trump. But there is definite tension there between the two of them, without a doubt.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out, I think. Because it's, on the one hand, it's very easy to separate Saudi Arabia, what's happening with Saudi Arabia and America and Qatar and the U.S., but at the same time, it's like, is there really a difference going on here? Because it's very similar amount of money, very similar how they're both courting Trump. His reaction seems to be very similar to them. So, and I think just kind of bringing it back to the Bible and to the Torah at the end of the day, what is going to happen? Obviously, it's going to get very bad, and the nations are going to come against Israel. The Bible says all nations, but does that mean, all nations, or does that mean, all of the United Nations, or all of the League of Nations, or the European Union? Like how does that play out exactly?
Well, we already have the United Nations against us. They condemn Israel more than they condemn any other country. And we pretty much have that already set up, meaning the United Nations have come up against Israel. But right now, the two main power players with regard to the land of Israel are the Arab world and the Western world. And right now, the Western world and the Arab world are starting to align. And so that really would be all nations surrounding Israel would be coming against us. Yeah. And that's really setting the stage for David to beat Goliath.
I'd say the United Nations might be sealing their fate here in about 3 weeks too, or 2 weeks.
Why is that?
Because you have we're coining the term the Palestine Summit happening in New York by the United Nations with, by the way, Saudi Arabia. So that'll be interesting to see if Saudi Arabia publicly supports the creation of a Palestinian state, with France, with other nations, June 2nd through 4th, I believe.
And can I just tell you, it is a God thing that is happening at the same time as our Israel summit is happening.
That's exactly what I was about to say.
Because you cannot draw a better parallel than us dudes coming together with maybe how many 500, 600 people, right, against the leaders of the world with the money and the hotels and the glamour and the weapons, and little us, just a few hundred people in Dallas. How many people right now are we up to?
400 signed up. We'll have 700 there.
We'll have probably 700 people, right? And what did Netanyahu call this war? Like Gideon's chariot, right? What happened in that war with Gideon, right?
300 against like hundreds of thousands. Yeah.
Exactly.
The army was made smaller.
It was made smaller.
And God had to make it smaller.
And how, on what terms was it made smaller? It wasn't just made smaller. They were brought to a river and they said, drink from the waters of the river. And those that feared God so much that they wouldn't even allow their body to bend down in the formation as someone who would bend down to worship an idol. So great was their aversion and hatred for idolatry, they wouldn't even bend down like that. It was those people, not the weathered, seasoned warriors, those people that feared God the most. They were the ones in that final war. And that's I think what's happening. So that's a pretty good plug. If you really love Israel, come to the Israel.
Well, the options are getting low.
Yeah.
They're really, the options are very low right now in America. To be able to truly stand with Israel, where can you go?
Yeah.
What group can you join? If they're not specifically standing with Judea and Samaria and with Israel's war in Gaza in a conservative right way, aligned with Israel being strong, where does that even exist anymore?
Yeah. And then there's other groups that say, we love Israel, give us money. And then they put millions and millions of shekels into going and proselytizing and evangelizing and converting Jews to Christianity. And so that's their way of showing like their love to Israel by fundamentally changing us. That's not a godly way. God loves Israel unconditionally.
Right.
And so you're right.
Well, the big problem with that is taking away Jewish identity. How in the world, if without Jewish identity, the state of Israel does not exist? And that's really what you've just hammered out here. And so it's incredibly important that we have a way to support Israel today that doesn't really exist. I wish that there was 100 Israel summits going on, because America is a Christian nation, supposedly. Where are the people of faith in America that should be standing with Israel saying, well, yeah, it's Judea and Samaria, and yeah, you have a biblical 4,000 years of history. By the way, there,
Arkansas
and yes, you should stand.
Did that this week, so there are some people standing up. Yeah.
There are, but you know what? If you can't make it to the Israel summit, I do say that these guys, Hayovel, support them. If you really want to stand with Israel from the nations of the world, go to hayovel.com and support the movement that they're doing, because they are a blessing, unparalleled blessing of love and brotherhood to the nation of Israel. And so that's...
Well, thank you for that. Yeah. If you guys didn't need another reason to come to the Israel Summit, I mean, obviously the fact that the United Nations is getting together to declare a Palestinian state like 5 days before the Israel Summit, like there couldn't be a better reason. But also I think another good reason is, the goal of the summit is not to bring together a bunch of pastors and politicians in the U.S. The goal is to bring people like Ari and Jeremy and Yishai Fleischer and Nati Ram and Naomi Khan from Israel's heartland. Yeah, an October 7th survivor and a security guy to Dallas. Like how about the heads of... I want to just mention that, though. What were you going to say?
No, I was going to say the head of the regional councils of the South, the people who are actually elected officials of Judea and Samaria.
Aren't on the site right now. We're adding people that are
or the head of security of the whole Jordan Valley. Yeah. Like these are people who live and breathe and know.
But I want to mention, it's a sacrifice because flights are being canceled like crazy right now. I mean, Josh's flight was just canceled. And it's a big deal for Jeremy to come, for Ari to come, for every single one of these guys leaving wives and children here when a terrorist attack like this happens last night. So I would encourage you guys, come to the Israel Summit. You can still get tickets. We'll put the link down below. If you can't come, you can get on the live stream. Tickets are there as well. There's just so many reasons to come. And I think we'll have to leave it at that. I think the good news is, because this show is biblically based, faith-based, we always end on such a positive note. Like, the Torah is coming forth from Zion, and that's like the end of the story, I think, which is just so amazing. Like, the light, God's light, is going to come forth from Zion, where those sparks are happening right now, and they're only going to get bigger and bigger. But obviously, that never happens without the darkness getting darker and darker.
Israel doesn't even have to ask Trump, Saudi Arabia, or Qatar to do that. That's what I think is great.
So guys, make sure you subscribe because you don't want to miss out on this journey, and you do want to get connected to the Land of Israel Network, the Land of Israel Fellowship, thelandofisrael.com. We'll put links down below as well for that. Guys, as always, tune out the negativity, tune out the darkness that's increasing around the world, and make sure you stay vitally, integrally connected to what's happening in the Land of Israel. We'll see you next week here, the Israel Guys, the Land of Israel Network.